Singaporeans don't care about fake news. We only care about bread and butter issues. True or not? Let's look into that. I won't be using the term fake news anymore. It's a hackneyed term usually used by dictators who try to discredit stuff that they don't really like. So in this video, I'll tell you about online falsehoods, why Singapore's government was actually right to do something about it, but then why its actual solution, POFMA, is flawed because it can be used as a partisan tool by one party against others, and what you, as somebody who cares about the truth, should be doing to prepare yourself ahead of this election. Online falsehoods are everywhere. They have affected elections in the US, ethnic conflict in Myanmar. People in India have even been murdered because of WhatsApp lies. Now, it would be easy for me to point out falsehoods in some shitty publication like this, or this, or even this. Oh wait, hang on. That's not fiction, that's true. We Singaporeans used to leave our pee in elevators. Now we turn it into beer. Progress, y'all. But forget all those. What I'm going to do today is show you a falsehood from one of my favorite publications, the Financial Times, on Sarah Palin. Now, I'm no big fan of Sarah, but let me stand on her side for a minute and critique the FT. Sarah was John McCain's vice presidential candidate in 2008, the election won by Obama. Now, do you remember her memorable line, "I can see Russia from my house"? That line got repeated everywhere. Liberals used it to mock Sarah's knowledge of foreign affairs. Well, Sarah lives about 1,000 kilometers from Russia. Why would she say, "I can see Russia from my house"? Well, guess what? She never did. This is what she said.
And you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
And she's absolutely right. America's little Diomede Island is about 5 kilometers from Russia's big Diomede Island. That's 4 times closer than Singapore is to Batam. Indeed, on a clear day, you can see Russia from land in Alaska. So how did Sarah's factual statement get transformed into a moronic gaffe? Through satire. 2 days after Sarah's interview, Tina Fey played Sarah Palin on Saturday Night Live, and Tina changed Sarah's words to,
"I can see Russia from my house."
It was a spoof. Tina had every right to do so. The problem is that media channels started reporting the satire as the truth. They started attributing Tina Fey's spoof to Sarah Palin. In 2016, 8 years after the incident, the Financial Times was still repeating the falsehood in this article about Trump and Palin. For sure, it's important that we distinguish between good faith actors and bad faith actors. Good faith actors, including most professional media, make honest mistakes because of human error or biases, and importantly, they are willing to correct their mistakes. On the other hand, bad faith actors, like shitty publications, deliberately spread misinformation and falsehoods, and they have no interest in correcting them. So this is my first point. Online falsehoods are everywhere. You must read critically, and you must distinguish between good faith actors who make honest mistakes and bad faith actors who deliberately spread misinformation. Now remember all this as we turn to look at Singapore. In my opinion, the ruling PAP and the mainstream media it controls, or MSM, have been some of the main propagators of falsehoods and unverified allegations in Singapore. Now I'm talking here about impact, not quantity. For sure there are publications like The Real Singapore and The Straits Times that may have put out a greater volume of falsehoods. But few have had as big of an impact as those that come from the PAP and the MSM. Putting the PAP in charge of truth is a bit like putting Michael Jackson in charge of the Boys Brigade or Maradona in charge of coca plantations. You know somebody's gonna get f***ed. Let me tell you about 3 times when the PAP and the MSM spread what appear to be falsehoods. First, Operation Spectrum, the so-called Marxist Conspiracy in 1987. 22 Singaporeans, mostly women, between the ages of 18 and 40 were arrested. A mix of activists, church members, and social workers. The PAP claims they were plotting to overthrow the state, but they were never charged with anything, and they were detained without trial, one for as long as 3 years. More than that, some allege that they were tortured.
The way he would hit me is that he would back up to the end of the room. Then he would start running towards me, and then he jumps up in front of me, and he whacks me across the face. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of strength in it.
Yeah.
Right away, many thought that the PAP had made a terrible mistake. In 1991, Walter Woon, later to be Attorney General, said that the government's case is still not proven. In 1992, Minister S. Dhanabalan resigned from the cabinet because of his displeasure with the Marxist arrest. In 2001, Tharman said that from what I knew of them, most were social activists but were not out to subvert the system. And Singapore's famous historian Mary Turnbull has called the alleged Marxist conspiracy a myth. All this directly contradicts what Lee Hsien Loong and his buddies told us in 1987.
Oh my God!
Now, whether you are in Team Hsien Loong or in Team Tharman, it doesn't really matter for now lah. What I simply want to show you is that the PAP's senior-most politicians have been offering us contradictory versions of the truth. For 33 years, Hsien Loong has insisted that they are Marxists, and for 19 years, Tharman has suggested that they are not. They both can't be right.
I said, please do not hit me. And immediately he hit me again.
This potential falsehood still lives with us. We are all complicit. All the accused, many are still around, and the perpetrators, most are still around. Lee Hsien Loong and Goh Chok Tong were in the cabinet in 1987. Shanmugam was in parliament in 1987. So was Cheng Bock. Let's look at two more recent examples. Perhaps the main reason governments around the world are so concerned about online falsehoods are because of their ability to affect elections. Well, at Singapore's last general election in 2015, perhaps the two most prominent falsehoods were spread by the PAP and the MSM. First, during campaigning, 3 Singaporean media channels published allegations from a poison pen letter that Daniel Goh, the opposition Workers' Party candidate, had had an affair with one of his students. A poison pen letter is one that is written anonymously to sabo somebody. No editor or publication with any integrity would ever dream of publishing it. Having a credible source is journalism 101. Imagine if I wrote a poison pen letter. Tan Chuan Jin, the Speaker of the House, is in Liverpool right now playing footsie with Lee Bee Wah. Signed anonymous, and I sent it to Singapore's MSM. Would they publish it? Of course not lah. But if you send an allegation about the opposition, lie, we help you spread the lie. Taobao, Straits Times, Channel News Asia, you should be ashamed of yourself. And you know what the funniest thing is? Now the MSM claims to be the guardians of truth, the credible source. Yola, tak malu ah? After decades of doing the PAP's bidding, tak malu ah? Second, just 3 days before Singaporeans voted in 2015, PAP politician Charles Chong printed and distributed flyers in Punggol East. He claimed that it was an indisputable fact that under the Workers' Party management, $22.5 million were unaccounted for. Chong has never shown evidence or facts for this insinuation. You might be wondering, well, if Charles Chong's baseless claim was so blatant, why hasn't anybody brought it up? Well, they have. During the POFMA debate, the Workers' Party specifically asked Shanmugam about this in Parliament. And you know what he did? He just deflected it, didn't answer the question.
Well, POFMA deals with falsehoods which are affecting institutions. So if the falsehoods affect the PAP or the Workers' Party, that doesn't come within POFMA.
Shanmugam intentionally ignored the statute in the POFMA bill that says the government can protect the public interest to prevent influence on the outcome of an election or a referendum. That is exactly what Charles Chong did by spreading that falsehood about $22.5 million. He was trying to influence the outcome of an election. The Workers' Party Peng Eng Huat pushed Shanmugam on this point, but Shanmugam ignored him. Go watch the whole video. Shanmugam fans like to tell me, oh, he may be tough, but at least he is straight up, he is direct, he will take anybody on. Nah, he only answers the questions he wants to answer. The rest, he will elak, dodge, tai chi, bring up the shield. Huh? I've just given you one glaring example, and if Shanmugam doesn't lock me up after this, I can give you many more lah. Think about it. Shanmugam did not have time to discuss a serious matter in Parliament with politicians whose salaries we already pay. But he had time to entertain Michelle Chong in a mindless conversation, spending even more of our money. Yeah, you and I paid for that. Who the hell voted for her? So those are 3 times when the PAP and the MSM spread what appear to be falsehoods. Let's move on now and look at the actual application of POFMA. When people criticized POFMA last year, this was the response from fans. Ayah, don't exaggerate, don't politicize the issue. POFMA is meant to stop viral content that might undermine our democracy. It just deals with facts, not opinions. And any disagreements will be settled very quickly by the courts. Okay, let's take that at face value and see if it's true. 3 of the first 4 POFMA directives were against opposition parties. Let's look at one of them. Josephine Teo ordering a correction against the SDP for a post about local PMET employment. SDP made an argument for why local PMET employment has declined based on this chart. Now you can see unemployed resident PMETs going up from 2010 to 2018. MOM replied using this chart. You can see local PMET employment going up from 2015 to 2019. Those are absolute numbers. Now we need to remember that it is possible for both employment and unemployment total numbers to go up. Imagine if 10,000 university students graduate and enter the labor force. 5,000 get a job, 5,000 don't. All other things being equal, PMET employment would have gone up by 5,000, and so would PMET unemployment. In order to really get a good grasp of the labor market and policies, we need to look at percentages, ratios, unfair hiring practices, things like that, a whole bunch of things. It seems like one of the main sticking points was the time period, SDP using a chart from 2010 to 2018, Josephine using a chart from 2015 to 2019. The High Court said its decision to support Josephine's POFMA hinged on, quote, what could be reasonably interpreted about the relevant time frame. The judge also had to decide on a key ratio. SDP's post mentioned a rising proportion of Singapore PMETs getting retrenched, but it was not clear what the base or denominator is. The truth of this statement depends on the denominator. So the judge had to decide. He rejected the SDP's assertion. PMETs retrenched as a share of all locals retrenched. That ratio is indeed rising. Instead, he agreed with the Attorney General. PMETs retrenched as a share of all local PMETs. Using the AG's denominator, there is no rising proportion of PMETs getting retrenched, and thus the SDP's post is flawed. That's interpretation. Isn't that opinion? SDP was not purposely publishing something that might go viral and undermine our democracy. If Josephine wanted to counter it, she should have just written her own rebuttal. Let people decide. Why the use of POFMA? There are more complexities to this case. Please visit my website for fuller arguments from all 3 parties. The case is under appeal. So I am not talking here about the outcome, simply the way POFMA was used for something that requires so much interpretation, not an obvious falsehood. Shanmugam also said that the POFMA power needs to be with the ministers instead of a judge because in the online world, speed is of the essence. Things move quickly, virality. Well, guess what? SDP posted its article on December 2nd, 2019, and Josephine's office ordered the correction on December 14th, almost 2 weeks after. Seems more like a fishing expedition to me. Finally, we were told, don't worry about delays. The minister is not the final arbiter. The courts will offer speedy resolution. Well, from the time of the correction order till the time of the court's decision was almost 2 months. Apalah, even Malaysia's courts are faster. So this one Josephine case exposes the reality. Now we know. POFMA will be used not just to challenge obvious falsehoods, but simply to challenge alternative stories and interpretations from opposition parties. POFMA will be used not only for instant viral content, but basically for anything out there. And finally, the POFMA dispute resolution process can take months. During that time, PAP ministers can issue takedown orders that have the force of law. Some of you might have blind faith in our current leadership, but what about the future leaders? What about 4G leaders and 5G leaders? Do you trust them with the truth? What if one day our leaders tell us that hydroxychloroquine can treat COVID-19? What if one day we are told that wives must talk in Doraemon voices? What if one day we are told that a person's race matters more than their ability? What can you do now? You must hold your leaders to account. We cannot allow POFMA to be abused for silly political maneuvers. There are real problems out there, cyber terrorists or state hackers who might try to manipulate us. Singapore recently used POFMA against lies about the coronavirus. That's good. We need to stand up against the abuse of POFMA so that when there is a real crisis, people will retain trust in the instrument. And one day we must replace ministers with non-partisan stakeholders. Maybe judges, maybe media professionals, maybe Kim Huat.
Hello, this is Kim Huat, Singapore #1 news fan.
We have a situation today where the PAP can make unverified allegations, like it did with the Marxist Conspiracy, like Charles Chong, and there is no immediate recourse. At the same time, the PAP politicians can slap down anything they don't like Josephine did with the SDP, even if it is just a matter of opinion or interpretation. There is a fundamental imbalance in informational power here. In the upcoming elections, as you listen to the PAP and the MSM, remember all that I've told you today. I want to finish off today with 2 points. First, to reiterate, I am glad that the Singapore government has done something to tackle online falsehoods. So thank you, Shan and the rest, for taking that step. However, in my opinion, your solution is flawed for all the reasons I've given. Second, I want to reiterate that this is not a partisan message. Singapore needs neutral arbitrators in charge of POFMA. Just like I don't want Shan and the PAP to be in charge of POFMA, I also don't want Pritam Singh and the Workers' Party to be in charge of it. I also don't want Chee Soon Juan and the SDP to be in charge of it. And I also don't want Cheng Bock and the... Hey, Cheng Bock what party? The fella keep changing.
I've been doing some thinking, been giving myself some time, I'm trying not to waste it. I can't live inside my head, no.
And most importantly, please remember, as Gandhiji himself would tell you if he was still alive, there is really only one truth in this world. Daniel Craig is the best Bond ever.